Friends for life. I have come to know that my parrot Aragorn was a common canary-winged parakeet, Brotogyrus versicolorus. I never really thought of him as a guest from the wild, but I happened on his description in my Peterson Field Guide. I always thought of him more like an angel, or maybe a visiting pet on loan from the Amazon jungle god Anadorhynchus. There was certainly nothing common about him, in his estimation or mine. To see him peel a green grape was to witness a public performance that put a staged exhibition of Edwardian table manners to shame. Aragorn had the most beautiful white, yellow, and blue wing patches, which he could reveal most gloriously if he was feeling tender or assured, or he could conceal them with complete drabness if feeling bitter or distant. Of course, I named him after the Tolkien Númenórean king, as he shared that hero's courage and loyalty, though not his humility. And like his namesake, Aragorn was certainly not above, as you'll see, certain human vulnerabilities. Brotogyrus means, from ancient Greece, having the voice of a human. Quite true. I never taught Aragorn any specific phrases, but he picked up quite a few from me, particularly in my weaker moments, various fulminations associated with trying to fix up an 1832-built farmhouse with a 1960s permissive academic education. No shop classes for me, no sirree. Most of those imitations are not repeatable here, though some were disguised by a possibly intentional sorting of consonants. A neutral observer might have been impressed by a parrot so seemingly concerned with odd gambits. I did teach him many bird songs, which I whistled to him and which he repeated rhapsodically in ad infinitum, with perfect fidelity. Unfortunately, he occasionally used them to lord it over the local outdoor avian population, scaring the wits out of the locals when I would let him fly out on summer days. Parrots are very strong and flashy flyers and not afraid to show it. If you're a white-throated sparrow and you see a whirling green lawn mower of a flying dervish coming at you and sweetly singing your mating song, you decide to flee. He was also not reluctant to bulldoze other pet birds, as I found out when I returned from Europe one summer and found the entire avian pet population of my obliging friend cornered and beleaguered in their big cage with Aragorn on the central perch, directing with the bodily and vocal force of a Bernsteinian symphonic conductor. I'm not sure the friend didn't think I had taught Aragorn everything he knew, and I regret the friendship did not survive to permit disabusing him of that notion. I assure you, the performance was all Aragorn all the time. Although I didn't know that going in, I had to assume he had some social skills. It is possible the intensity of his performance may have been trained upwards by his learned efforts to get me to wake up in the morning to play his favorite fetch games. Aragorn's principality was the bathroom in my old upstate farmhouse. His main pontifications were delivered from the shower rod surrounding the tub and were often accompanied. What, you think you're so advanced because you have a ceramic spittoon dedicated for these purposes? Accompanied by certain rearguard exudations into the catch-all tub, easily showered away into our conjoint plumbing oblivion. Some friends in the current day have mentioned it was no wonder I failed to attract a girlfriend back then. Aragorn and I had many intimate moments together. He was there when I witnessed the sudden appearance outside my window of hundreds of migrating scarlet tanagers, like Christmas lights on every twig and branch, then gone. He did go a bit quiet on that one. He was there when a graceful brown bat flew in the window and stayed for a week. We shared our awe at his silent maneuverings up and down the stairs and systematically patrolling the rooms and hanging upside down from the dining room light fixture during the day. Aragorn often sat on my head when I planted seeds or picked for my garden. He was a brutal judge of the ripeness of green peas. He was there the awful day when a friend came by with his Dalmatian and the dog went after a broken-winged barred owl I was nursing back to health, and in the ensuing melee, Aragorn got his neck broken in a slammed door. At the time, I had two other similar parrots, both of which were timid and never showed their colors or personalities like Aragorn did. Why couldn't it have been one of them that got his neck broken? I guess Aragorn, the hero, had tried to interfere and help us capture the Dalmatian and save the owl. I was left with the two dismal twins miserably perched on the windowsill. I hadn't even named them, couldn't even tell them apart. A few days later, one of the twins flew onto my head and leaned over my forehead to clean my teeth, just like Aragorn used to do. It was Aragorn. He flared out his colorful wing patches and crowed like his old self. He'd been traumatized into total quiescence by the events with the owl. In that mute state, he had assumed the identity of one of the colorless no-names. I don't think I have ever been so cheered up by an unexpected reversal of fortune. Sure, I grieved for the unnamed versicolorus, who I had buried under a white rock on the squash hill in the garden. But I was able to reclaim the tears I had shed for Aragorn. Aragorn had the most joyous spirit ever created on this jungle-patched orb. He would crow in fantastically ornamented cadenzas at the smallest glimpse of sunlight after a storm. He never tired. Some might think he simply made too much noise. I admit I did think of driving him south and canoeing him out to a small island hammock in Florida Bay and leaving him to crow alone. A man does deserve some peace. I could imagine him reverting to the wild. I could also imagine his and my sorrow as I paddled away, and the inevitable flight over water resulting in our never parting again. Aragorn's kingdom in the house was ruled from the upstairs bathroom. We shared that bathroom. There was only the one, as did any visitor who came to the house. My brother complained that Aragorn landed on his head and pecked his fingers when he was washing his hair in the shower. To say that Aragorn was proprietary would be a Sidicidian understatement. Sidicidian is the taxonomic term for parrots. That's taxonomic, not taxidermic. If Aragorn overhears a word like that, I might never hear the end of it. But the central candelabras in that royal bath's idyllic altar room were the toothbrush rack and the toilet flusher handle. Both could be made to rattle with jangling metallic alarm. A visitor friend's father emerged ashen after an extensive wrestling flushing attempt, and Aragorn did manage to achieve clarity infernally ever after by copying his solemn announcement. "That thing went after my pecker!" Now, that's not fair, some of it. Aragorn was simply trying to prevent a possible rival from possessing the silver bugle comprising the flusher handle. But in fairness, he wouldn't let you use your own toothbrush either. Anyway, that possessiveness may explain Aragorn's hyper-strategic actions on a certain late summer's day. I had heard him rattling the bathroom door latch for some days. It was one of those old-style metal bars with a finger trigger to raise the bar up out of the slot. Unbeknownst to me, there was a metal lock flange on it that I had never used. I heard a loud click that was unfamiliar, followed by an ecstatic crowing from inside the bathroom. Aragorn had figured out how to lock the flange and flipped it over, locking me out of my own bathroom. It was his finest moment. I had to hand it to him. And I had to ladder up to the second floor outside and break out a window pane, and he was still pecking on the back of my hand when I reached for the latch. And that was just one day with Aragorn. He watched me disable the lock flange with what I can only describe as pride. Now, you may have heard me refer to Aragorn above as if he was still with me. He isn't. But that doesn't mean he's not still out there somewhere. Parrots live a long time, as I have lived a long time, and Aragorn may have considered our time together as a very short time, for all I know. I do remember that he seemed to linger for a long moment as he looked at me before he flew away. And the ornithological literature continuously records Protogerus sightings up and down the East Coast, and even breeding sightings. Maybe his departure was as simple as that, not a case of knight errancy, as befitted his station in our upstate Gondoran realm, but a simple search for tail. In this case, the distinctive long green tail the field guide says is indicative of his genus and species. In any case, I do try to watch my language just in case he and his sweetheart might be close by.